Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 3 o'clock on Sunday, and I am here ready to have another great Legacy Hour chat. Today, like every time, every Saturday and Sunday, I have somebody very special, extremely special, very influential, a talent like no other, and respected and admired by the whole industry. And I'm talking about Mr. Steve Thompson. And so, first of all, I would just like to welcome everybody to the L.O.V Legacy Hour, and to a big shout out to all of the DJs around the world, because this week, the first week in October, we celebrate the L.O.V DJ holiday. And Steve is one of those people who actually signed the declaration for to make this legal, and it is a legal holiday. If you didn't know that, now you do. So it's important for everybody to understand. I mean that we did that because we are the leaders. The legends of vinyl are the people who actually innovate, create, and take risks. That's how we are. Ladies and gentlemen, before I start and do anything with Steve, I would like you to please take a look at this particular video. That is very important for everybody. All right. So hold on a second. Let me get out of the picture. So I'm gonna do this right, hopefully. So let's see. Video capture over here, and I'm gonna go right there.
Thompson, and I'll share this with you because the work speaks for itself about the guy. He invited me a long time ago to come to his house to listen to a fresh production of an album by Life of Agony called Ugly. And regardless of what you think of the record, the fact that this gentleman invited me into his home to come and listen to this record, and as I sat there and watched him pensively and excitedly, like a little boy, waiting for approval or disapproval of his work, showed me the passion that he had for this. And that's the thing that I like about Steve, his passion. And now we're going to bring out a gentleman who's going to give you more light about Steve Thompson and his career. This gentleman has played guitar for tons of people, including one of my faves, Mr. David Bowie. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carlos Alomar to the stage.
Wow, not bad. What an amazing array of artists, eh? Although I see they left some of them out. Every mother's nightmare, the Butthole Surfers. No, I'm serious. He's played with a lot of bands. I saw him dining with the Fine Young Cannibals and playing with God's Little Monkeys and the Wu-Tang Clan, not to mention Screedy Politi.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, when a man can make a band that isn't a band sound good, that's pretty good. Now, there are two things that are abundantly clear from viewing this video. One, Steve Thompson's imprint has been paramount to the success of these famous artists. And number two is his standard of excellence. Now, excellence is not subjective but objective, or that is to say that it is something that one's efforts are intended to accomplish, a purpose, a goal, a target. With over 250 million copies sold and Grammy Awards to his credit, my friend Steve Thompson has been hitting that mark for years. And tonight we honor him for his efforts. I first met Steve years ago when we were working together on David Bowie's Tumble and Twirl album and the remix. And over the years, I found him to be a producer of exemplary vision. But it is not enough to have a vision. It must be coupled with a skill set that will help you bring that vision to fruition. For over 4 decades, Steve has expanded his job description by his efforts. Starting out as a guitar player in New York City, he elevated himself to become a DJ, then to a remixer of dance music, and a composer and arranger, and finally, becoming the producer that he is today. From classical to Americana, electronica and dance, from R&B, reggae, and hip-hop to pop and rock, Steve Thompson has influenced them all. It is with extreme pride that tonight we induct my dear friend Steve Thompson into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Long Island's own Steve Thompson.
What the hell am I doing here? What's up, Long Island? How we doing tonight? Oh, I figured this is something you get when you're either retired or dead. And I just want to let everybody know I'm not retired or dead yet. And I have to say one thing. I like to thank God for all my blessings and to having a great sense of humor to guide me through my life. And before I get to the humor, I have to say one special thanks, because to me, I would be nothing without not having my wife, Joanne, here. Oh, there you are. She has been through me with everything you can imagine. In fact, people say, hey, Steve, you got to do a movie. You have to do a book. And I said, no. Joanne's been there from day one. And I'll say a quick story. I was a DJ in a club in Long Island, Channel 80, and I met Joanne there. And we dated for probably about 6 months. And I went to her one day and I said, hey, Joanne, I'm a record producer. She goes, yeah, right. Okay, yeah. She had no idea. She didn't believe me. So one day I sent a limo to pick her and her girlfriend up to go to the studio in New York. I don't think she still believes me. Anyway, a couple of things. Joanne, I love you and thank you for being with me. I mean, the hours and everything that you sacrificed in your life to be with me. I love you so much, and the biggest praise in the world. Love you. I have no speech. I have no clue what I'm going to say, but there's a couple of things in my musical career I have to acknowledge. I would like to give a special thank you to Clive Davis for being probably my biggest mentor in the world. Clive, hold on a second.
Oh, wow.
I have to say, I've experienced a lot of things in music, but to work with Clive and have Clive trust me with his best artists in the world to work with is absolutely amazing and a dream come true. And anybody who doesn't know Clive, I've worked with everybody in the world, worked with the best artists in the world. There's nobody better than this man to know what a great song is, how to cultivate a career for an artist. And I want to see more Clives in this business, because to me, there's nothing I could say that could better that. And Clive, thank you so much for being my mentor and tell me how to enjoy a great song. You're awesome, Clive. Also, I'd like to give special thanks to Dennis McNamara, who we had a great relationship in Long Island. I used to work in clubs in Long Island, and I would do remixes like, Tears for Fears, Shout, Talk, It's My Life, Psychedelic Furs. And I would give them to WLIR. And we developed a relationship, great radio station. We had such a great bond. I would work till 4 o'clock in the morning. Dennis says, hey, you want to do the morning show with me at 6? I said, sure, what the heck, just give me some good coffee. And we had such amazing times. And what I loved about LAR, it was such a groundbreaking station to bring a lot of new music to the forefront. Also, I'd like to give special thanks to Fingers, crazy man that he is. We had some great metal moments together. I would work in Long Island, go in the studio in New York, and Sundays we had special metal softball in Long Island. We would do the softball games, and we had people like all the rock bands are out there, Chris Angel and everything like that. And then we would go to Larkfield Lanes in East Northport and do thrash bowling. And BAB, we would call Fingers up, hey, Fingers, play this song. So we kind of had like our own private radio station. And I love Fingers for that. And I'm not going to take you up your time, but it's such a great honor being brought up in Long Island. And I think I have the natural evolution of a New Yorker. Born in Brooklyn, lived in Queens, lived in Long Island, and lived in Manhattan. And to have an honor like this bestowed on me is something I can't even imagine. And again, I'd like to thank all the people in the music industry. And there's one thing, I have to say, I think the turning point in my life, everybody says, well, how do you work on all different genres of music? And I said, it's easy. You know, I grew up with the British Invasion, Motown, James Brown, and in the 70s, to me, the game breaker was David Bowie, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. That was the game changer. And Roger, if you're still out there, thank you so much for probably one of my favorite albums of all time you've worked on. And the one thing I could say to the music of today, I work on a lot of new music, EDM, and everything like that, and I love it. But I'm hoping to see that the music industry lets artists be artists, let them create the art, let them be adventurous, let them create. I know it's a pop market out there, and I love pop music, but at the same time, music is an art, and I really feel that artists today should be able to experiment and really do what they do. And that's how we're gonna find the new Pink Floyds, the new Marvin Gayes, the new Led Zeppelins, the new Rolling Stones, the new Beatles. That's what we need to do. And I understand it's a bottom line business, but the bottom line is you make that music, people would buy it. Thank you very much, Long Island. Love you. Take care.
Let's hear it for Steve Thompson.
All right. Wow. Did you like that? Did you learn something about? We're talking about a gentleman who has incredible talent working with Guns N' Roses, Madonna, John Lennon, Public Enemy, Whitney Houston, Metallica, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and multi-Grammy recipient. This gentleman has so much to offer, still going strong. So I would like you to please welcome a good friend, a legend of vinyl as well. I was hoping that he can say, hey, by the way, let's hear it for Louis Martin. No, I'm kidding. It's just a joke. So here is Steve, ladies and gentlemen. Steve, my brother, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you all for tuning in. And it's a joy and a pleasure to be here. I am so sorry that I'm a little bit under the weather. I cracked a rib from doing a lot of heavy lifting in my house, but all's good.
All's good. You look good. You look good. You look good.
Yeah, I got the little chest brace on, so we're all good right now.
Oh, man. Steve, man, let me tell you, this happened. What year was the induction in the Long Island Music Hall of Fame? What year was that?
I think it was around 2014.
14. Wow. You know something? I looked at it, and as we all know, I look a lot of Steve's work. I enjoyed it, but it's a lot of work. His interviews are like a laundry list of things. And so I end up with just this little piece of paper here with kind of condensed a little bit but what I'd like to do is I would like to hear from Steve to take us back to, like I always ask my guests, to please teach us something. Let us know what happened back in the day as before you became a DJ, because that's important for all of us to know. We all had a childhood. I know that you were brought up in the greatest era. We all did. For those who are born in the 50s and even the 60s, obviously, incredible music for all of us to enjoy and to learn. So, Steve, what's up? What's up with your early days?
Oh God! To put it in a nutshell, I remember as early as high school, I was responsible for supplying the music to the senior lounge in my high school. Graduated high school, and my goal was to be an architect, and that fell through the wayside. And I started working in record stores in New York. Always had a love for music. I will be honest with you, I was a crap guitar player, but I always pursued.
Right.
And I got the opportunity to actually be a club DJ. Now you have to understand, in that time, the only DJs really were happening in gay clubs. And the only reason I knew about DJs is I used to go to gay clubs.
Yeah.
And I would go to this club in Long Island, and they would have bands play there like Twisted Sister and all these other bands. And I said to the owner, why don't you bring a DJ in there? Because after the band would get off, the lack of excitement would be terrible. Why don't you bring a DJ in there,
Right.
and they'll hopefully create the excitement?
Right.
So little did I know that I would get a call from them about a month or two later saying, all right, Steve, we put DJ equipment in. Would you be our DJ? And I knew nothing about being a DJ, but I did have a record collection. I said, sure, why not? So that's how I started DJing. I think it was a club called Leone's in Deer Park.
Wow.
And I started DJing, and I have to be honest with you, I probably sucked. And I kept doing it for a while. And then I became a member of the Long Island DJs club with Jackie McCloy. And I remember Vince Michael, which was a great DJ. And I remember he came and listened to me, and he told me I basically sucked. And that was probably the best advice I've ever gotten. So that really jumped up my game. And Vince and myself became close friends. In fact, he worked in a club called a gay club in Equus, called Equus in Long Island, and he actually let me DJ there, which I love him to this time. God rest his soul.
Right.
He left us way too prematurely. But so I started DJing in a lot of clubs in Long Island, and I remember I had an opportunity to work on my first record for Adam A. Roulette. Roy B., which we all know, was the contact I had, and he said, let's put together a album of all dance music called Disco Hustle. So I did it with a friend of mine, Phil Silverman, and we put Disco Hustle together, and then had songs like Donna Summer's Love to Love You Baby, Crying Eyes, Dreaming Your Dream. You get the idea.
I have it.
It was a double album. It sold over 12 million copies worldwide. I was even in the TV commercial.
Wow.
And I remember getting a $250 check and no credit, which is a typical Morris Levy move.
So fucking true. I love it. I love it. But this is like before 78, right? 76, 70, 77?
Probably about 75, 76, around that area.
Right.
So I kept pursuing being a DJ. And then I got to work in this club called Barrymore's in Long Island, and this owner, Ron Radom. It was a great club, and he used to love what I did. And at the end of the night, he would listen to my sets on tape and absolutely loved it. We lost touch. Excuse me. We lost touch, and a couple of years later, he got a job at TK Records.
Wow.
And he talked to me about my talent with Henry Stone, and Henry was interested in working with me. So I was working at Uncle Sam's at the time with Mike Corrado.
Okay.
So the first song we worked on is we took Silly B, Fly Me on the Wings of Love, and did like an edit and things like that. And he loved what we did. So Michael and myself started doing remixes for TK. And that's how it really started. Then we did Kathmandu The Break.
Yep, that's the TK Kathmandu right here, and obviously Steve's name is on this record as well as the unit disc Kathmandu, and there's another 12-inch that I have with the cover that is all like how can I say different, like it's like that practically looks a little bit like volume 2 of Kathmandu. But you didn't have anything to do with Volume 2. Kathmandu to this day is a high energy, incredible record to play and wake up people, basically. And it was done in such a great style, Steve. Congratulations on that one, really.
Well, the story on that song, it was originally called DJ Instrumental. And I tried to bring vocalists in to try to add vocals to the song.
Yeah.
I brought in people like Sissy Houston, which is Whitney Houston's mother,
Right.
and a couple other studio singers at the time. We worked on lyrics, and at the end of the day, I wasn't really feeling it. So we felt that let's just keep it instrumental and make it exciting, and that's basically how Kathmandu came out. And and it was interesting for a instrumental to chart as well as it did is kind of monumental, but it's kind of exciting, which I kind of like.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. To this day, is on everybody's playlist. You have to have it if you're playing in a disco, whatever. But it was a breakthrough record, high energy, instrumental, kick-ass song. I love that. All of a sudden, the '80s came into it, and you were already on another level, my brother. You were going. I mean, way up there. What's up after '79?
Well, as you know, the demise of disco happened in the early '80s, and I never stopped working in clubs, so I did my club life, and then I got opportunities to start working on an R&B music in the early '80s, like with Stephanie Mills, Cameo, Barkays, Junior, a lot of those artists. So I started remixing all those artists,
Right.
and that was becoming very successful. Then after that, I started working on what they called New Wave at the time.
Right.
Because David Bowie was probably my biggest mentor in me wanting to be in the music industry. I mean, I absolutely love this man. What I loved about David, I've seen all his shows, and what I loved about him as an artist, that no matter how successful he was in a genre of what he did, he'd always change it up, and I've always liked that. With that said, I got an opportunity to work with Talk Talk It's My Life.
Oh God, what a record! Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ultravox, Dancing with Tears in My Eyes, Missing Persons,
Right.
Psychedelic Furs, Heartbreak Beat,
Yeah.
Shout Tears for Fears.
Right.
Again, I'm going on the top of my head. There was so many Icicle Works, Birds Fly, Whisper to a Scream. So I worked that whole genre of music and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Then after that, I started working on pop music again. Working with artists like Madonna, Open Your Heart, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, Aretha Franklin, Who's Zooming Who,
Yeah, I remember that.
and a ton of other songs.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that all these songs are charting very well and doing it successfully. But I was kind of getting bored. I needed to do something different because I'm always been a chameleon of music. I always never wanted to be pigeonholed in one type of music. That was my goal in life. And so I remember calling my manager up. I said, Andy Kippens and Mark Bevan, I want to do some rock and roll because I know I could do it well. And believe it or not, the first two artists I got to work with in that genre was Guns N' Roses and Tesla, thanks to Tom Zutaut at Geffen Records.
All right.
So after I started doing all these rock projects, again, everybody thought I was a rock and roller.
Right.
You know, because I ended up working with Metallica and Justice for All, Dokken, Cinderella, Alice Cooper. I mean, you name it. I started working with all these bands. but I always wanted to change it up.
Right.
And I remember at the end of the 80s, we sold, to this day, I've sold almost 400 million units and still selling, thank God. But at the end of the 80s, the early 90s became alternative music. That was the key. And everybody looks at Steve Thompson, well, he's a rock guy from the 80s. What does he know about alternative?
Right, right.
I basically said, go fuck yourself. I know what I'm doing because, being a DJ, you always look in the future. You never look behind.
Totally.
So I wound up picking a band that was an alternative band that wasn't well known called Butthole Surfers. And in the early 90s, I produced their album and co-wrote a song called Pepper, which wound up becoming the #1 alternative song and album of the year. So that was a big fuck you to say, don't ever pigeonhole me. And I remember in the early 90s, I worked with Soundgarden on their first album, which I thought was amazing. They put that in the grunge category, which I didn't really feel they were grunge, because you had Nirvana and you had all these other bands at that time.
Right.
But, that's where I was at that point.
Wow, man. I remember those days like if it was yesterday, especially those days of the new wave music, the transition between the 70s and the 80s. And 79 when all of the, Blondie and Cars and Gary Newman and all of them. Then going into the 80s when I was at the Copa and Mark Kamens was at the Mud Club, I believe, or the Danceteria, I think it was.
I absolutely love Mark. He was such a beautiful
God bless
person.
him. God bless his because he was an incredible, talented man, right? I mean,
And also Scott Blackwell was an
Scott,
amazing guy.
man,
In that
yeah,
genre.
yeah. And that's the kind of music we were talking about. It was incredible. It was high energy. It was everything that people wanted to hear because the transition of the 80s, the 70s and into the 80s were a little cloudy there for a little bit. Because we didn't know what the hell was going to happen between the disco, not the dying, okay? I don't want to use that, but the transition and with the breakdancing and the freestyle and the DOR and the punk and all of that kind of stuff going on at the same time, everything at the same time. And Steve was there for all of us to actually talk, one of the greatest songs to this day, Talk, and so many others. Thank you for that, Steve. Those were incredible days, but going into the rock and roll part of your life, when you went with, I want to know a little bit about the time when because you've been from Paul McCartney to all of these people that you have worked with. But the Guns N' Roses is something that is intriguing to a lot of people. Great band. How did you work with these people? How well did you work? Because you sold millions. I mean, they millions of records worldwide on that album.
Well, understand, I was a member for the record pool with Judy Weinstein.
Yeah.
And David Morales, and I was very close with Larry Levan and everybody there. And I think they all scratched their heads and said, well, Steve, you've been so successful in dance music. Why did you get into rock and roll? And again, I get bored quickly. I need to always have a challenge when I work on music. So when I started working on these hardcore rock bands, and again, I was very fortunate to work with David Bowie on a bunch of songs. One was Dancing in the Streets with him and Mick Jagger. Right. I worked with the Rolling Stones on Harlem Shuffle. Right. I worked with John Lennon on Milk and Honey. I mean, these are idols I grew up with. I mean, I still have to pinch myself to be able to work with them.
Sure.
And at that time, I felt when I worked with Guns N' Roses, I felt their rock should always have a sense of danger and in your face type of thing. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand at that time, there were a lot of hair bands that were out there. And again, I've worked with some, like Cinderella. Mm-hmm. And then you have Motley Crue and everything. But I felt Guns was different. They lived the life. They lived in the streets. They lived with strippers in the houses. They had no homes. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was working on Tesla's first album, Mechanical Residence, Tom Zuthat, the A&R guy, would send me demos of Appetite for Destruction. and I absolutely felt in love with it. And the only reason I didn't produce that album, we were so burnt working on 4 albums at once. They wanted the album to work on right away. We were burnt, and my feeling is when I work on an album, I need to be there 1,000%.
Sure.
So I said, why don't you find somebody to produce it and I'll mix it? And that's how Appetite happened. And I felt at the time that this is where rock and roll needed to be in this time and place. Did I think it would be the biggest selling rock album of all time? No. But I felt that if it didn't hit, we were in trouble because I felt that's where rock needed to be.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate. When we were in the studio in New York, we worked closely with Axl, Slash, and Izzy on the album.
Do you compare? Who do you compare Guns N' Roses to? Because I'm an old rock and roll. Like I said before, it's my first love, rock and roll, and obviously, growing up with the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and so on and so forth, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, those guys set this everything in to be able to be called rock and roll. Axl and everybody else, they had that personality, the charisma, the everything, the full package. Do you compare Guns N' Roses to anybody from the from the old days?
Well, you have to understand, Black Sabbath to me developed heavy metal back in the early days.
Right.
Led Zeppelin is probably the biggest rock and roll band of all time in the 70s.
Right.
Beatles were a pop band, and one of the best bands ever because I have so much respect what they did in the studio with George Martin and what they were able to achieve with the limited amount of technology they had back in the day. I mean, you have to understand one thing about George Martin. George Martin brought orchestral arrangements to what they did, and they experimented. The Rolling Stones back in the day with Brian Jones were a cover R&B band, and and I worked with the Rolling Stones.
Right.
And they had it all. You can't compare Guns N' Roses to them. It's just a different era and different genre of music. Mm-hmm. And they all had their place in rock and roll history. Right. Same with when I worked with Metallica. Metallica was the quintessential metal band in the 80s. They set the bar. And exactly when I worked with Korn in the late 90s, they set the bar. But that's basically all I could say about rock.
Yeah.
My goal when I make music is that I want to make it contemporary and timeless at the same time. And as a producer and a writer, I want to make sure whoever I work with, because I work closely with lyrics, arrangements, and music, that no matter who I work with, I think it's really important to say, okay, what audience are you trying to attract? And you have to understand lyrics are a very important part. I mean, you look at these artists today that the Beatles wrote a song called "She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah," #1 hit around the world. If you tried writing a song like that today, they would laugh at you. But you got like Nicki Minaj saying, "I want you to eat my ass" or whatever. That's just where it is today.
Yeah.
So it's very important, when I work with artists, that I want to deal with lyrics that kids can relate to in today's climate.
Right. Well, you do work with some hip hop artists. According to my notes here, dance and hip hop and R&B or reggae. What do you feel? How do you feel about that? They come to you, but
I love hip hop. To be able to work with Public Enemy, Wu-Tang, Be Real from Cypress Hill, Ice-T, Ice Cube, I can name Farside. I always loved hip hop. In fact, Larry Bland used to tell me, "Steve, why you like hip hop?" I said, "Because it's fresh and cool." Larry was more into the classics and maybe a little more house and stuff like that. And it was kind of funny.
Well, don't you find it a little offensive in some lyrics? Most lyrics actually are a little demeaning to people, to women. And am I wrong by saying that?
Well, again, basically back in the dawn of hip hop. If you had a band like Public Enemy,
Right.
what I loved about them, they were expressing how they grew up and what kind of environment they were in. And I think that was really good to be able to express that to the audience who knew nothing about the struggles that they went through. Hip hop today, a little different, but again, it's less about social issues and more about how can we, what's the best way to say this? How can we shock people, which is sad. I mean, what I loved about hip hop was also, it was always about social consciousness, which I always loved and always supported.
And it's also kind of they borrow a lot. There's a lot of sampling going on the hip hop genre. Is that right?
Oh, without a doubt. But it's like when there was East Coast hip hop who would rip off James Brown, and West Coast hip hop would rip off Parliament and Funkadelic. That was just that was just what they did. And to me, James Brown is to me the most funkiest motherfucking bands ever, and I absolutely love that band.
You got that.
I mean,
right.
from Fred Wesley and funky drummer.
Yeah.
That band, I don't care what James Brown, what came out of his mouth. That band just kicked my ass.
Hit me. Hit me.
Yeah. I mean, lyrically, it might be a little trite, but it was great.
Yeah.
Now, with Parliament and Funkadelic, I remember back in the day, Knee Deep, Flashlight, One Nation Under a Groove were staples to me. I mean, I just absolutely love that genre. In fact, I remember doing radio shows for WBLS, Kiss, and KTU back in the day. And I remember Frankie Crocker, I would do shows for a station. And Frankie used to say to me, he says, Steve, your programming is too black for my station.
No shit.
Which I have to say I laughed at because it's an urban station. But Frankie was into kind of like white disco.
Yeah.
But my shows were like James Brown, Lynn Collins, Smoke by Tribe. I mean, Samande Bra. I mean, I would go down to the essence, and that was my shows. I love it.
And Frankie Crocker, I mean, he broke the rules on the radios and so on WBLS. He used to attend the garage quite often to listen to Larry and to actually absorb what's going on in the underground era or area. And then he went the next day. He went there and he played the full version of the songs. He was the one who actually broke that rule. You couldn't play more than 2-3 minutes long versions, radio versions. All of a sudden, he's playing the 12-inch version of that. When you
Didn't Frankie do an album, the Heart and Soul Orchestra or something like that? I think he was into artists like Cerrone and
big time. He had to be. I mean, when you walk into the garage, and I mean, tell me a little. Going back to the garage, which is so important for people to understand that those were a lot of hours to stand there behind the DJ booth like Larry and working in after hours like myself. I knew for 12, 14 hours. There were long hours. I don't care what anybody says, but you had to relieve Larry a few times. Talk to me about that.
Well, the thing about the garage, again, being a member for the record, I met Larry, before then. And I remember Bruce Forrest would finish Better Days or whatever hour he did. And we meet up together and we'd go to the garage. So after a while, I got to know Larry well, and I used to take over for him at times. And then he gave me a couple of guest DJ spots. And I got to be honest with you. I've worked in the biggest clubs in the world. I did a guest spot at Studio 54. And God bless Studio 54, but it's not my type of crowd. I preferred, if I'm a DJ, I preferred the gay crowds because they knew music and they appreciated what you did.
Yeah.
The garage was all about music, and Larry was not the best technician as a DJ. But you know what was great about Larry? He programmed like there was no tomorrow.
He knew his audience. It didn't matter if he made a mistake, it didn't matter.
It totally didn't matter. It totally didn't matter.
Yeah.
He had that crowd mesmerized.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I got behind the decks to play that Richard Long sound system and have the control of the three-way equalizer.
EQ, yeah. You have one of them. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I have it right here.
And to experience Chaka Khan performing Clouds at the
Oh,
club one night.
ow! I love what a
And
great song.
to experience DJing in that club, to me, was the ultimate euphoria.
Right.
Now, you have to understand, there's a bunch of DJs I have to give a shout out to before I go any further. First of all, I'd like to thank Tom Moulton for developing the remix. If it wasn't for Tom Moulton, I don't know if I'd even be in the music industry. I also like to thank people like Robbie Leslie, great DJ, Walter Gibbons, great DJ, Paul Casella, which I learned so much about, Mike Arado, Phil Silman, Sharon White, the hardest working person.
Oh
in the show.
my God, Sharon, yeah.
Jenny Costa again, and to be able to hang out with Larry Levan, Larry Patterson, T. Scott, Chef Pettibone, Bruce Forrest, I'd like to give so many props to let me work at Better Days.
Yeah.
John Luongo. I mean, I can go list Judy Weinstein for actually let me be a member of a record pool. And I'm going to show you this one thing. Al Kent did this. Can you all see this?
Oh yeah, the man in the glass. Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, that was, of course. Yeah.
That is me in the picture.
I can't see because it's a glare in there, but you're the one on the left. Oh
I'm
no,
the
you're
one
one of the center.
Yeah, I'm the one in the middle.
Oh,
That was taken in the 70s when I DJ'd in the club.
son of a gun! I would have never recognized you. I would have never.
Well, I've been a comedian. I've dressed my looks a lot of different ways. and again, I'd like to say a special thank you to Mike Arado, who was a very talented DJ, and we did remixes together back in the early days, and I love him for it.
Sweet. I mean, it's so much, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Legacy Hour chat with my guest today, Mr. Steve Thompson. And so much to say, so many things to learn from Steve. I'm excited to have him. Thank you for being with us. There's so much more because you still have going so many projects, I'm sure. But, from 2008 to 2009, you already have released 8, highly acclaimed and anxious awaited CD mixes and all of that kind of stuff. And went to Canada and stuff like that So tell me a little bit more about that time. I mean, from 2009 and on.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to play you a little bit about things I've been working on, which is kind of interesting. I remember about 10 years ago, I think it was around 2010, I wrote this song, worked with studio musicians, and wanted to do the ultimate DJ bathroom record, which came out to about 17 minutes long. I won't bore you in playing 17 minutes. I'll play you the essence of it.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Taste me,
a song called "Feel Me." I mean, I'm very into Donna Summers, back from "Try Me," and older songs, and I'm also the Ritchie Family. Brazil
Oh,
was
1975.
one of my favorite albums. I always loved deep, lush strings. Like I worked on a song called Johnny Mathis in 1979. With my favorite string arranger was Gene Page,
Oh,
which did a lot of Barry White stuff. Absolutely
right.
loved him. So that's what made me write this song "Feel Me," and it's about 16 minutes long. And then I wrote this new song called "Revolution" for rock and roll kids. I'll play a little bit of it. It's about what's going on today. I'll play you up to the first chorus. And I tried to marry EDM with rock. Check it out.
All right.
I'll just play a little bit of that.
Wow, what a difference.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a comedian, and I felt
Yeah,
that
yeah.
what the world is feeling today. Obviously we're going through a revolution. I wrote that probably about a year and a half ago,
Mm,
anticipating something like that, and I felt it was important. I remember the Beatles had Revolution #9 back in the day to deal
right.
with the issues back, and I felt kids needed something today.
Wow. Something, something that is coming out soon. Is Are you still working on it? How long is it going to take to get that out?
Well, the band's from Prague, so they're working on it in Europe at this point, and we'll see what happens in this country at this
Yeah.
point.
Something that we all wonder what's going to happen, and just sitting here patiently waiting for the miracle or something. We all need to
Well,
get back to work.
I would like to say a couple things.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Again, I think we as people need to stop the hate. I know there's a lot of people that hate Trump or hate Biden or this and that.
Yeah.
I believe in our country. I believe the people in our country are very kind and giving. That we need to stop promoting hate and let things do what they do. And I just want peace for everyone. I want people to live a great life and live a free life. And I wish nothing but the best for everyone around the world.
Yeah.
And I've been very fortunate in my life to be able to travel around the world, visit many cultures, and I love them all. And I've always been a proponent for equal rights for all, for Black Lives Matter. I can't believe that we're even dealing with this issue because I dealt with this in the '60s. I mean, for people to judge a person on skin color to me is disgusting, and I'll never get that. I love my black brothers and sisters dearly, and for anybody that has hate for that group, I could say "f you."
Right.
I love all my gay friends and gay community and LGBT community. I love them to death. I
Well,
am a I
y-
am a Christian,
yeah.
and I love God, and I always believe in God. But I just want people to chill out, and hopefully that things will turn out and not to stress out. That's all I can
Well,
say.
I love what you did actually. If you follow Steve Thompson on Facebook, which is a disaster, I love that you bring cartoons into our lives. I love to share. I love to even. I just look forward to that because it is, and we need to make light about things, and we obviously I enjoy the cartoons. I love. We grew up with cartoons, and they're. I like that. Thank you for doing that, Steve, because we need to really stay away from all of that kind of stuff. We're in the music industry. We're not politicians, so we don't. I wouldn't know about even going into
Well,
politics.
the
Yeah,
unfortunate thing
but
is that they were so polarized because of the media
yeah,
and
but
the left against the right, and I think that's terrible. We all have the ability to be able to vote in November, to vote for the people we want
right.
in government. At the same time, I think everybody needs to be respected in their views and not be, if you're against a certain person's view, stop telling them to F off. I mean, come on, give me a break. Everybody has a right to their own views. We live in America in a free society, and we should all be able to express our amendment rights. And I would never, ever, ever down anybody, even if it's against my view, as long as they keep it civil. That's fine. I'm cool with that because that's why we are where we are. We still live in the best country in the world. Obviously, we have our flaws. I hate to see discrimination in any shape or form. I so support law enforcement. There are a couple of bad apples, but to say they are the root of all evil is wrong. Without a law in society, we're in trouble. And people need to wake up to that fact. We need law and order, and hopefully these bad apples that are abusing their rights will be prosecuted. But at the same time, we need to be human and we need to have compassion for people. I know that might sound cliche, but that's how I feel. I mean, I love everybody. I love every person, no matter what their race, religion, sexual preference, or creed is. That has no bearing on my life because that's not how I grew up. I was very fortunate to be brought up with parents that had no racial issues whatsoever. It says, Steve, we don't care who you bring home, as long as they're respectful, that's good enough for us. And that's how I live my life.
Well, Steve, you have a big platform. Your words are received by many people, and you do have a lot to say about this, and we all appreciate it. What I wanted to do before we end the show, Steve, I want to hear from you to tell us what you think about this outcome as far as the new normal, so to speak, about what we are expecting. Hopefully, this next year we all kind of come back together and continue. Some of us who depend on doing events, concerts, and stuff like that to. Like our event, for example, New York 2021, we have an incredible array of people coming to this event. So we need to. What do you tell the new people? What do you tell these people out there that's sitting there, wondering? Somebody like you can put a light on it.
Well, I think it's very shameful that the entertainment industry has taken a major hit.
Right.
And I think it's really important when there are dark times, entertainment's a way for people to escape the reality of things. And I really feel the government better get their shit together and make entertainment viable for today. whether you're a DJ, you're an artist, a musician, concerts, this and that. It's so important. And I really feel, yeah, we are in a pandemic. I mean, we can look back in history at the 1917 pandemic and things like that. It's a very hurtful thing. I mean, one person dies, it's a problem. But at the same time, it's important that we be able to live our lives. We we are able to be responsible and making sure that we take precautions not to infect other people. But we need to live our lives, and we need to entertainment, like I said, is a cure for a lot of ills in this world. And for them to put a damper on it really bothers me.
Right.
There has to be ways that we can do it responsibly.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful words. Thank you so much, Steve. I just wanted to please my respect to you, and obviously my love to your lovely wife, Joanne. To tell her we say hello, and stay well, keep safe, recover from what you're going through. A lot of pain, a lot I know that you're going through, but most of all, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for being part of the Legends of Vinyl, a small organization that's still striving to survive, and I need your help. And I'm asking you openly to please help us to continue the tradition. I will be calling you soon enough after all of this game because I have a few plans ahead, talking about starting a whole new image completely, revising everything for 2021. January 1st, 2021, we have a whole new look, a whole new approach. And I would love you to be part of it, Steve, if that's okay.
Always, it's an honor to be in this organization.
Thank you.
And I love my music community. And thank you all for listening to this. Hopefully, that we all can live together, share our music together, and
That's
make
right.
this world better. I know I hate to sound cliche, but I've always been a positive person. So is Joanne. We
Right.
pray for everyone every day,
Right.
and we will never be negative. And we're just here to do God's work. I love you, Louis.
Love you too, Steve. Thank you so much. An hour goes by so fast, ladies and gentlemen, because we are learning, we're listening to so many wonderful stories, and this is history in the making. This is still history, what we are learning. This is a legacy hour, and I can't be more happy than spending it with somebody who I admire and respect, like Steve. And for this time, Steve, I will be talking to you hopefully soon enough on the phone. And till then, Steve, my respect, much love to you, my friend.
Much love to you, Louis, and much love to everybody who's listening. Love you all,
Thank you.
and just be positive, and let's get through all this together.
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, the legacy hour, we always end up with L.O.V. is the message. Steve, God bless you, and have a
God,
wonderful week, okay?
God, God bless you all. Have a great one.
Talk to you later, bro.
All right, bye.
Okay, that's the one over. That's ended right there. Yes, what that was awesome. That was awesome, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see what I'm doing here because I have to regroup. We're gonna continue. This is a continuation thing. Right now, we're going to start our next show, and the next show is called El Flaco and Pinky. El Flaco, that's me. I'm getting there. I'm actually, losing weight. I just went to the doctor and he told me that I'm